I was attracted to this project because I'd worked in film libraries for over 20 years, and during that time had had a chance to see some really incredible letters between Hollywood people that really showed what it was like to live and work in Hollywood. And so I thought it would be a great idea to do a book collecting together a lot of those letters. As the project moved forward, it kind of morphed into something else, which was a chance to almost do a history of Hollywood using the letters, which is the reason why we decided to arrange them in chronological order in the book. So the most challenging thing, there were a couple of things that were pretty challenging about the project. One was how to find the letters. I mean, there were certain ones that both Rocky and I had in mind that we knew we wanted to use, but there were a lot of others that we needed to go out and find. So we did a lot of research at libraries and archives here in Southern California and also across the country. We worked with a lot of archivists to get ideas from them about letters that might be interesting for the book. And we started to collect together as many as we could. The other part of putting the book together that was difficult was making the selection. We had a lot more letters to choose from than we were able to use in the book. And so we had to make some tough choices. But what we ultimately decided to do was to try to create a sort of timeline of letters by putting them in chronological order in the book and hoping that by doing so, people would really see sort of an evolution in Hollywood from the 1920s silent era all the way through the studio days of the 30s, 40s, and 50s up into the beginnings of New Hollywood in the 1960s and 70s. And of course, you know, we hope that a lot of people will approach the book that way, coming into it, sort of going through and seeing the history. But other people may approach the book in another way, and we sort of hope that people will just come to it whatever, you know, in many different ways. Some people may just go in looking for their favorite people in the book, or just sort of go in and just be randomly select certain pages to look at. So we're sort of hoping that that it'll be a different experience for every reader who comes to the book. There's so many letters in the book that I like. It's kind of hard to choose a favorite. Some of the ones that I really like actually are written by people who are maybe not as famous as some of the other names in our book. I mean, we have some very famous people represented, like Greta Garbo and Humphrey Bogart and John Huston, Katharine Hepburn. All of those letters are absolutely great. But I also like the ones that are from people who are maybe not quite as well known. For instance, the letter from the character actor Louis Calhern, who wrote from Hollywood about his experiences working at MGM and making musicals, and has a very wry sense of humor about what it was like to live in Los Angeles at that time. Or the letter from Geraldine Page, who was working on her first big role in a film when she did Hondo with John Wayne in Mexico. And she writes quite a fascinating letter about what it was like to work on a remote location back in the 1950s, making a 3D film. So there's a lot of letters like that that I think really bring a lot of variety to the book, and also that are going to be very surprising for people. Even people who know a lot about Hollywood, I think, are going to learn something about how films were made and what life was like in Hollywood from our book.